I got a degree in biology, Bachelor of Science, and with an honors in, I guess it technically would be marine biology. So I studied under the supervision of Dr. Pedro Quijón, and we looked at green crab. Specifically, we wanted to know uh, how green crab in experimental enclosures would affect the infauna. What I mean by infauna is small bivalves like clams and mussels, and as well as polychaetes, which are marine worms that live in the sediment. And we wanted to know if having native rock crabs in the same area would affect how the green crabs forage, if they would eat less, or if they would eat more, or the same amount, or if it didn't matter at all. We basically want to know if they would compete with each other in a way that would kind of mitigate some of the impacts of the invasive green crab. So that's what we tried to look at. We did that in Surrey River and Basin Head. Like I said, using experimental enclosures and with different treatments of crabs. We had a control with no crabs, low density treatments, which were 3 crabs, and high density treatments, which were 6 crabs. And I got all my green crabs, no trouble catching green crabs in Surrey River. I got them all down there at the boat slip. I just basically put out little traps and waited for the tide to come in and baited the traps with soft shell clam, basically anything. And it's funny when I put out the traps and I'd wait for the tide to come in and I basically wouldn't even use the traps. The crabs would just come in and I'd just start catching them with my hands and it would be no trouble. I'd get hundreds of crabs in the matter of 10-20 minutes there when the tide started to come in. So that was part of my honors degree. In fulfillment of that, so I had to write a thesis and everything about my results, which is available at the library. Uh, Basically, what we found, one of the more important findings, I think, was that when you did include rock crabs and green crabs together at high densities, so basically 3 rock crabs and 3 green crabs together, there was significantly less predation on the infauna by the green crabs. So basically the 2 species interacted in such a way that the green crabs were preoccupied with the rock crabs and didn't focus on eating so much, which tells us, well, we can't draw too many conclusions from that, but it tells us that potentially having rock crabs in the area could potentially mitigate some of the predation impacts that the green crab will have when they move into an area. So that was probably the key finding we had. There was some more little things as well relating to sandy sediments versus muddy sediments, but the main thing was that rock crabs and green crabs interact in such a way that it can limit the green crab feeding. The green crab is an invasive species on PEI. In North America, actually, it's a European green crab, so it originated in Europe. Thought to have arrived in larval form from ballast water of ships in the 50s, I believe, in New England, and has come up the shore, come up the Atlantic or the eastern seaboard, and has arrived in PEI, I think, in the early 90s. And anytime you get an invasive species, it can have some pretty drastic impacts because the ecosystem's not adapted to handle it. So in terms of the green crab specifically, it's known to be a fairly intense predator on bivalves, especially clams, and they'll eat mussels as well. So in places like PEI or Surrey specifically too, where aquaculture is fairly important, people dig clams, people grow mussels. When you have something move in that is a fairly voracious predator like that, that can really, limit your populations of what you're trying to harvest, it can be a pretty serious issue. So that's why Dr. Pedro Guillaume has really been devoting a lot of time researching the green crab and its impacts and its effects in eastern Prince Edward Island.
Is there anything that can be done with the green crab in a commercial way?
That's a good question. I think, and this is kind of outside the realm of what I looked at, but I think that they did at one point try to market green crab meat, um, fairly unsuccessfully. I think they're a fairly small crab, so you have to get a lot of them, and it's fairly a labor-intensive process to get enough meat yield to make it economical, to make it feasible from my understanding. They do eat blue crab, which is a related species in the states, but to my knowledge, there has been no real progress in terms of using the green crab now that they're here some way that's feasible, that can kind of limit their populations in a commercial way. So basically, and even in terms of limiting their populations any other way, I don't think there's too much going on. It's basically right now research and monitoring, I think, is predominantly what occurs with green crab.